This episode of the eeDesignIt podcast is sponsored by Microchip Technology. Make the move to high voltage silicon carbide with ease, speed, and confidence. Microchip Technology's new 3.3 kilovolt silicon carbide MOSFETs and Schottky barrier diodes deliver advanced efficiency and reliability for your high voltage power systems. Unveiled last month at APEC 2022, the MOSFETs give you the industry's lowest on resistance of just 25 milliohms. And with the Schottky barrier diodes, you get the industry's highest current rating of 90 amps. Plus, you can get either of these power devices as a die or packaged. To learn more, visit microchip.com/APEC 2022. All right, guys, I'm Nicolette, and today Brian and I are here with Ed Garibian. He is the CEO of Llumin, and he's going to talk to us today about some software that is helping on the plant floors. So let's dive into manufacturing and find out more about machine downtime. I think that's a hot topic right now. So thanks for joining us, Ed. We appreciate your time.
Oh, sure.
Why don't you kick us off by telling us a little bit about Llumin and what you guys are working on over there?
Oh, sure. Llumin is a software company that's really focused on mitigating or reducing or eliminating machine downtime, actually. And what we do is provide customers with a solution that allows them to monitor their machines in real time, critical parameters, anything from conditions such as temperatures, flow, how many hours the machine's been running, any type of parameter that makes sense that's critical for the care of that machine, and use that data, use those real-time values to then trigger actions off of. In our world, an action can be as simple as a notification, an email, telling something that's, telling someone that there's potentially an event that could occur. Mm-hmm. Customers can also augment those actions with, work orders, maintenance requests, even spare parts orders, all based on what's going on with their machinery during production in real time. It's a cloud-based app.
Right. So I'm just thinking about a client actually that we were chatting with who had all of these sensors for pretty much the same thing on the equipment. So how do you work with the manufacturers in terms of getting the equipment set up for that type of monitoring?
Sure. Yeah, our software is very standards based. In essence, any type of protocols that the manufacturer has in place, we support. Obviously, with IIoT now, there's a whole array of MQTT and all the associated protocols that the Internet of Things technology has brought forth, and we support all of those. We also support what's called more legacy, I guess, protocols, mm-hmm. PLCs, distributed control systems, where they have OPCDA and an array of other protocols, Modbus, et cetera, that we also support. So really any type of intelligence that the manufacturer has on their plant floor, we can use that to present opportunities for predictive and proactive triggers.
Mm-hmm. So you're basically taking the data in from any of their sensors that already exist, right? Is that just, I know you mentioned temperature and some other parameters, right? Do you guys also do like visual monitoring if they have visual data that's coming in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. Any type of data, and right, as long as that data is presented in an electronic format of some sort, we can actually trigger off of it. So that can include observations, that include video data, that can include sound. Those are all parameters that can be used to trigger actions in our system. And our system's a workflow-based system, so that it's not only understanding that there's potentially alarm conditions or conditions that represent alarm events, but with our product, customers have the chance to very thoughtfully and engage around those events. So in other words, at the time of day, the criticality of the machine that the event's on, those are all parameters that can be sort of fed into our system, and out from that come actions that make sense based on what process they're monitoring, who's the operator of that process, what location are they in, what supporting vendors, suppliers, or contractors they have nearby. All of those can be fed into our engine, and then once an event or an alarm condition occurs, the actions to mitigate that are very much honed in on, the specifics around the process at the exact time and the exact event and the location of that event.
So how does it, okay, so we've seen manufacturing go from like 1 shift to 3 shift to now being almost automated, right? Where it's just really monitoring. How has it changed over time, right? With being able to monitor that data, or how important has it gotten?
Sure. I think, technology itself has forced the manufacturing community to look at processes that make them more competitive, because if they don't, their competitors are. It is a world market. So in general, IIoT and Industry 4.0 have on its own, become catalysts for improving your operations and leveraging, what used to be enormously expensive and take an enormous amount of time, leveraging the technology to the point where they can be a lot more nimble and a lot more connected. But obviously, in today's world, over the last 24 months, we've also seen that where factors that have nothing to do with technology, or, well, at least certainly OT or IT, I'm referring to the pandemic and labor shortages and supply shortages and all that. Those have also accelerated, the need to, take a really hard look at how to improve your operations, your manufacturing operations, your operations in general, your supply chain, and use Industry 4.0 technology and IoT to really streamline things. Most of our customers are multi-site, but even those that aren't have, as we see, remote workers, or at least have to think about remote workers, and how to do that in a manufacturing environment is probably not the most intuitive thing, but it has to be thought through. And I believe our product and the tech stack that we're based on allow customers to truly add that to their competitiveness. This so-called nimbleness and speed and the ability to adapt quickly is all part of what drives customers to come to us.
So,
sorry, Nicola.
I'm sorry, Brian, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so if you mentioned multiple sites, right? So when you have multiple sites, or even like a multiple part process, maybe even at the same site, right? Can you talk a little bit about how that data sort of affects what's down the line, right? Because sometimes all sort of, they're all daisy chained, right? So they're all sort of one after the other. So how does it impact like the very tail end, right? If something goes wrong in the beginning or in the middle of the process or in that point.
Yeah, that's really true. A lot of our customers, the way they produce their product is through a process. It's through, obviously food and beverage is a perfect example, but there are others. And as part of a sort of a continuous process, obviously anything that occurs upstream or downstream affects the end product. And it's very hard to recover from faults that occur even early on, because it is a continuous process and everything's connected. The batch, the flow, the ingredients, and all that are impacted. Whether if there's a temperature change early on, that can obviously ruin an entire batch of product or output. So those are examples of where speed and a very proactive and predictive approach to eliminating any type of faults is hugely important.
So I think you've covered a lot of the opportunities there that lie for American manufacturing. Are there any others that, where are the other opportunities that we're missing? Well,
one of the areas that our customers have told us they really benefit from by deploying, our product or products like ours, is in areas of safety, worker safety. So whether they're a continuous manufacturing process or not, the reality is there are a lot of new people coming into the workforce. Maybe not enough, but there are. There's new workers. There's workers that are sort of retiring. So there's a lot of change going on from an HR perspective. And, we want to make sure that, that those types of changes and you combine that with the need for quickly adjusting their manufacturing processes and how they make product and the drive to customize operations doesn't affect worker safety. And our application and the way it's constructed and the benefits that customers get from being able to be more predictive reduces the risk of injury, and it reduces the risk of injury not only to the immediate worker, but to folks in the plant. And in some cases, depending on the type of process it is, it can also reduce the impact to the environment and potential injury to the environment if there's leaks that occur or toxic, materials or toxic, elements or waste or whatever they get exposed. So all of that is something that customers will tell you that our product helps mitigate.
Do you see a lot of data monitoring in, like, because we see a lot of automated with like warehouses, right? Where that logistics process. Do you see a lot of people in that space really implementing solutions like this?
Well, I think our niche is infrastructure, physical infrastructure, machinery. Doesn't have to be machinery, but physical infrastructure, and any environment where part of their operations, customers have to maintain or manage physical infrastructure, physical assets. We're a fit. I would also say that supply chain is in general, whether it's local warehouses that service the manufacturer or the industrial plant or the customer site, or vendors, 1,000 miles away or 10,000 miles away. I think integrating the supply chain is a huge is a huge task, and it's also one that is absolutely necessary. Not just because we've all heard about shortages, but now increasingly being lean means using partners to the fullest, right? And whether the partner is a labor source, a supply source, a tool source, or a machine source, integrating their operations in sort of a way to speak into your operations in a connected manner is as vital as understanding the condition of your machines on your plant floor, in my opinion. Right. So that's
do you see that as like autonomous whatever robots or vehicles, now they're collecting all this data, it's going to become even more complicated to collect the data and understand what's going on? Or is it, now that there's actually like sort of not that there's always real sources of data, but hopefully there's more accurate sources of data at every moment. It's going to be easier to understand what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I think the beauty of what IoT and in our world IIoT has brought is that it's lowered the cost of monitoring, of monitoring parameters. I want to use that word loosely because it's a good point. I mean, now there are different types of sensors, and those sensors can be placed in different areas and monitor different aspects of what's going on in an operation, dramatically different than what we had thought was possible even probably 10 years ago. And so I think IoT and IoT have made really complex monitoring a lot more affordable. And in doing so, you're going to get a lot more data and maybe, collecting, parameters and conditions that you couldn't collect before. And I agree. Once that happens, I think decision-making is going to get easier because you're going to have, sort of like different perspectives on what's going on at a point in time. And each perspective, what I mean by that is being represented by different types of conditions. So as you add, instead of measuring only or monitoring two points of data, now maybe, it's pretty easy to monitor 4 or 5. And maybe, oh, by the way, you're not only monitoring the actual 4 or 5 points on the asset or the machine, but maybe you're also monitoring, the ambient weather or the surrounding
Right.
weather or the surrounding air pressure.
Right.
It's all now possible, and it all adds to decision making, and hopefully the ability to be more accurate in your decision making.
And I think those are key points that when we look at the future, right? And I always like to ask a very futuristic question, and if you had it your way in your mind, what would the future, of manufacturing look like when it's coupled with all of this technology?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I still think that, in the end, it's all about supplying quality products at fair prices, and hopefully products that are safe to use. In other words, maybe what's going to happen is, instead of cutting corners and producing products that are less quality, or products that the customer doesn't know are less in quality until maybe too late. Maybe now this technology will allow manufacturers to actually produce more quality products with more quality at a less less cost. And whether it's the less direct cost, or at such great efficiencies that they gain they gain margin by eliminating waste in their processes, and allows them to use better raw materials, higher quality raw materials, higher quality product, but make it up in terms of higher throughput. That's great. So I guess to answer your question, we're just hoping that all everything we do and our counterparts in the industry just ultimately end in better quality solutions for the end customer.
Brian, do you have any other technical questions for Ed today?
No, I think I probably asked enough at this point.
Ed, what is it that we're not asking? What do you think we should be asking about?
Our website, no.
I like that answer.
Yeah.
No, I think the one area that I think customers or prospects have to understand is that the cost of, and we sort of touched on this, but I think the cost of doing this type of implementation or adding this type of technology to their operations process is continually dropping. And I think we started, IoT has been around for whatever now, 4 or 5 years, industry as a buzzword anyways. And it is interesting, when it was first chatted about or whatever, you talked to prospects and they looked at it as something that involved an enormous amount of change, right? And retrofitting and all that. And I think just in the last 5 years, I mean, while it might be still true to some extent, I think the level of complexity and the whole notion of this daunting retrofit is really dropped and has dramatically improved. So I think that's where that should get out, I would say.
All right, Ed, tell us where we can learn more about Llumin.
LLUMIN.com, Llumin.com.
Thanks so much for your time.
All right. Thank you.